I'm probably the oldest.
Why am I spotlighted when you're talking about that stuff?
You guys ready to hit the start webinar button? I just thought better get it PG before we click go on that.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, let's go.
Here we go. Let's start.
Here we go. All right, MPI. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Soraya, how's it going?
Doing great. How are you?
Did you have a good convention?
Yeah, I watched it from home, but it was great.
Yeah. So a lot of Canadians could not make it down. So, but it was great that they live streamed the thing. So, welcome. I know we did a mentor call a little while ago, and I was really impressed with you. And we wanted to, one of the things we were just talking about is getting more young people and more young people, male and female. I think that people get the impression that the securities business is kind of a place where older, non-Hispanic, non-African American people go to make money in Primerica, but that's not necessarily the case, right?
No, absolutely. It's a great opportunity.
So what are you doing right now to try and grow your book, grow your business, not just your book of business, but your team as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, we're a fanatics with Arlie in the hierarchy. So we always try to get our clients on the FIN number. So even with like the front end sales going on, I've been going back to all my clients and doing the front end sales charge on them, but also like revisiting their FIN number. And out of that, like 50% of the people that I've been seeing, we've raised their packs or even doubled them. So that's great. It's a win-win for the client and it's for me. But I really enjoy talking to securities about securities with people because it's a better conversation than life insurance. And once we sit down, we'll open up all the other doors. But especially when we're in a time like now where there's hyperinflation, it's so easy to talk to people about like you're losing money. How do you actually get ahead in an economy where we're battling 6% and all that kind of stuff? So it's a really big door opener for sure.
I set out to people a lot. I started in the business when I was 24, and I think a lot of people feel, well, I'm younger, I look younger, people aren't going to take me serious in the securities realm. And I always said, look, if you dress sharp and you really know your stuff, that'll overcome, any conception of age. Do you feel the same way? Like, what do you do, being a younger person in the business in the securities industry?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. In the beginning, I definitely had like imposter syndrome, and I was like, no one's going to talk to someone. I was like 22 or something when I got started, but I always just like went for it and had full confidence, and people believe your conviction and you're confident. But also like, don't worry about knowing everything. Like for me, the FIN number, the first time I learned that, like that's like literally all I've done. One of my recruits who just actually did his profile video, like I got him as a client doing a FIN number, and now he also just got into the business. So I just try to like have good talking points, like how much you're going to need, why you need that much money. I always remember that the person in front of me doesn't know as much about investing than I do. So I don't need to wow them with my information. I just need to like get something that they really understand, and they understand like, oh, okay, I really need to start this today, and then just kind of dig it from there. Like if you don't do this today, well then your dollar is actually worth 40 cents tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like why wouldn't you go ahead when you're battling something like that?
Yeah. So a couple of the things. One, what's MPI meant to you? I mean, being able to get on, seeing Cody, seeing Peter, all the different people that we've had on, how important is that? Has that been for you to develop your confidence that, hey, if they can do it, I can do it?
Yeah, it's been huge, especially watching like Ryan, can't remember his last name, but someone I think younger than me, making a lot of money, probably been in the business a lot shorter than me, but it's really awesome because I'm the type of person where I want a little bit of that technical, like how do you actually get to that? So like even Cody Beckett, when he talked about approaching businesses the other day, I like kind of like voice noted it, and I've been like religiously doing that, and prospected a couple businesses myself yesterday for the first time, and actually have an appointment today with a business owner, and like it's a little scary, but we're doing it. That's all that matters. But MPI has been like actually just life-changing. I just really thank you guys for putting this on.
Yeah. So last thing, at the convention, it was obvious there's a big divide in the company.
Yeah.
And I used to think the divide was, you know, the white north part of the US and Canada, and then you've got Hispanic Primerica, African American Primerica, who are exploding recruiting and premium. But I realized at the convention, after talking with a lot of them, what it is you've got a group of people that have embraced social media and are building through social media. And then you have a group of people, us, who are just kind of stuck in the old way of doing things. Well, this is the way we've always done it. We're going to continue to just keep doing it. And it feels like there's a big divide happening in the company. You got 21-year-old girls or women in the company who are making $500,000 being here for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and so how are you using social media? Are you embracing social media as part of your business? I mean, obviously you grew up with social media.
Yeah, you know, I grew up with social media, but I actually always hated it, like hated people seeing what I was doing. And like a year and a half ago, once I, you know, pretty much got into Grant's ecosystem, I was like all about social media, and I've recruited people off that. I've got multiple clients off of that. And even if you don't want to do the recruiting or the client side, you just want to provide value, it helps really build credibility. And the thing with social media is you have to be consistent on it. You can't post once a week or once every 2 weeks. Like it has to be every day. And if you can do multiple times a day, that's best. But some people that I've got from social media, you know, following up is always the key. They were like, you know, I knew I had to book in with you because every time I'd see one of your posts and you talk about inflation or you talk about saving money, I'd always be like, oh, I really need to work with her. Like she knows what she's talking about. So it's just huge for credibility. I mean, what would McDonald's be if they didn't have their big M's everywhere, right? So you kind of have
100%,
to take that.
100%.
It's free.
Yeah, that's awesome. And look forward to seeing you continue to grow and explode your business. And thanks for helping us out today. So really appreciate it. Ben, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
I could listen to her for longer, sure. And the key, I think, with the social media guys is just provide value to people, right? Don't come across as that cheesy salesperson. Provide value to people. Build your influence, build your followers, build your contacts, and there's going to be a lot of business come your way. Hey, I just wanted to real quick few logistics, and I'm going to really turn this over to Nick. But I got a lot of people coming up to me at the convention, thanking me and the leaders for this, and I just want to. We appreciate that feedback. So we don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste your time. We want to provide a ridiculous amount of value. I was joking around earlier. I don't want to be re-recruited every time I'm in a Primerica meeting. I don't want rah-rah. Actually teach me something that I can implement to be more professional, to build my client base, to build my team, to help me make more money. And I really think that we're in a special time. I think the second thing is some of you that are real technical and you want to know everything about everything before you do anything. You just have to understand that it's really not about that. The reason I got decent at investments is I just went on a ton of appointments. So if you guys go on a ton of appointments, you're going to learn this business really fast. And I know this doesn't sound very sexy, but it's going to come down to how bad do you want it, right? When you're working, are you in the right market and are you focused, right? So last week I worked Monday, made 25 grand. I worked Tuesday, I made 10 grand, and I went to the convention. And this week, the days that I'm working, I'm on it, right? The challenge is some of you are in a bad market, or you're not being intentional and focused when you're working to make sure that you're in front of the right people, to make sure you're doing a good job, you're providing more value. And then of course, your team's going to do what you do, right? If you're engaged, if you're focused, if you're on it, your team's going to follow suit. Second announcement, I love you guys' energy on Telegram, but let's try to keep a lot. Let's prevent it from becoming like a chat room. Obviously, private message everybody, that's fine, but let's keep Telegram for more of the important value-added things. Really excited. Next week, we got Chris Royce on, so don't miss that. He's one of the best communicators, in my opinion, in the entire company. So don't miss that. And then the last thing, I've been getting this question nonstop from people the last couple of weeks in terms of clients, but just understand that the stock market and the economy are two different things. So one of the things that's important to explain to clients is they think it's the same thing, right? So if we're in a recession or we're heading into a recession, that just means that the stock market's not going to recover until the recession's over. That couldn't be further from the truth, okay? Stocks look forward, oftentimes over 12 months forward. So in my opinion, it's going to be a cyclical bear market. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bottom in September, October. And the concern that I have is that a lot of our clients are going to miss out on the big bounce back. So if you remember March of 2020, when stocks basically went down 40% in 4 weeks, everybody that sold, panicking, getting emotional, they missed out on that big V-shaped recovery, right? So that's the important thing is, is just communicate with your clients, provide more value, be there for them. Because not only is this an important time to help your clients, but if you're engaged right now, you're going to make a stupid amount of money and get a stupid amount of business, because there's never a better time to be engaged than during a bear or down market. Okay. It makes business so much easier because people realize, one, I don't know what I'm doing. I probably should get an advisor, or two, my financial advisor never talks to me. So I see my quarterly statement, I'm down, I'm ready to make a move. And of course, you have over 10,000 baby boomers that turn 65 every single day. So in my opinion, the return on investment right now has never been better in the history of this company. I think we're going to see more and more people making $500,000 on their own pen, $1 million on their own pen, working less than 40 hours a week, because this wall of wealth is real. So again, if you're not experiencing success, it's because you're not in front of people. So you've got to figure that out. But hey, I consider Nick Therrien a friend. I think he's one of the best that we have in the country in terms of providing value to his clients. He's close to 100 million in assets under management in his base shop. He's close to $500,000 in income. He's under another friend of mine, Dan Brochu. So he comes from a culture of really doing the right thing for people. And that, honestly, guys, that's what I respect. I mean, there's so many successful organizations, but what I respect more than anything is if I go interview 10 of Nick's clients, I'm telling you that they all absolutely love him. He brings a crazy amount of value to his clients. He does the right thing 100% of the time. And what good is it if we build a big business and we make a lot of money, but we're not really delivering for our clients? But Nick always delivers. So, hey, Nick, appreciate you hopping on today, bud.
Hey, I appreciate the kind words, Ben, and definitely it was good to see you at the convention. I'm going to basically share how I handle clients and how I've built my book of business, and just kind of give you a quick background. I've been in the business 21 years. I was formerly a high school math teacher, and I had to learn how to undo my experience as a teacher. I enjoyed it a lot, but it doesn't always translate easily to this. And I was a hockey player growing up, and I joined the business for the freedom. They used to talk about freedom of time, freedom of money. What I needed at the time was freedom of time. I had a son with a disability. He was 8 months old, 8 months prior to my second son being born. And then when they were about 10 or 12 years old, my wife got diagnosed with MS. And so we've dealt with some different challenges. And I just think that Primerica just proves that despite anything you go through, there's always a way. And there were times in the past when, especially early on, when you think maybe putting up Primerica on a pause and going back to get a job, just to get through some hard times. But fortunately, we never did that, never went down that path, and very fortunate today, to make twice what we used to make a year teaching per month. And so it would not have been the case if I had ever taken too much of a pause. So wasn't the quickest to, we're at 470, whatever at this point, wasn't the quickest there, but Primerica was really about freedom of time for me for many years, and still being able to build a business in the process. I, being a high school math teacher, obviously securities was always something that interested me from the get-go. And so, we kind of built the securities business, but more because we did F&As and did the right thing. So I'm going to share with you a presentation. Hopefully you guys can all see that. Guys, just get the thumbs up that it's working. Okay, thank you. So gathering securities, I'm in Londonderry, New Hampshire, state that has 1.2 million people, about 40 miles north of Boston is where I live. You know, but it shows you you can build a securities business no matter where you are in this country. So I think there's 3 phases to learning. I learned this from Chris Royce, actually. Phase 1 is the awkward phase, where you feel overwhelmed and you just feel like there's so much to learn. Phase 2, I think you know everything you need to know, but you feel like you're working so hard. As I remember being maybe 6 months to a year into the business and just thinking like every appointment I forgot something. You know, so but there's a part where you know everything, but it's still not natural. And then there's the professional phase where you can just show up to a meeting, yellow pad, presentation. It doesn't matter what you have. You can just go ahead and start working through the presentation, draw it all out on yellow pad and still close business. You know, and I think the only way to get there is, Ben was mentioning appointments. People don't do enough appointments, right? I used to coach hockey, and when my kids were 4 and 5 years old, and parents would always come up to me and say, how my kid's not learning fast enough. How can I teach him how to skate? I'd always ask them, how'd you teach him how to walk? You tell them to put one foot in front of the other, or you just keep standing them up and forcing them to walk. Eventually, they learn how to walk on their own, right? It's the same thing with skating. It's the same thing with this business. You've got to do it to get better. You can't just read about it. And so MPI is awesome, but by itself, it doesn't help anybody in the field. You got to be in the field constantly and do an MPI. And I think all of it together works much better that way. My opinion, keys to a successful securities business is, 1, there are no shortcuts. You know, the reason anyone is successful is they're willing to spend the time to learn. You got to learn the product options. You got to learn when each product is suitable. You got to learn that our job is to use products that meet each client's needs, not find clients that fit our products. I mean, imagine if you went to a doctor. Doctors don't look for sick patients so they can use their meds. They prescribe proper meds to sick patients, right? So it's the same. I think we just go see people, and then we have the products and services that can help those people. You just got to learn that process. Learn how to overcome client objections. Learn how to build relationships. That's probably the biggest key. The vast majority of my clients are friends. Learn to capture clients' hearts. You know, Art Williams used to always talk about that, but it makes everything easier when you capture their heart. Learn your personal business philosophy. You know, and so in the system, in my opinion, it's not much different than what Ben just told you. If you do F&As and you gather documents, you set up PACs for everyone, you'll learn securities. You'll come across cases, you take them back to the office, you walk through them, you know, different rollovers, inheritances, life insurance proceeds. But if you're doing PACs on everybody, you're learning this much quicker. And it's also what helps you build a lot of AUMs. So my number 1 recommendation when I'm training somebody is learn analogies that your clients can relate to. I will tell you, if anybody's ever talked to me about securities, I spend most of my time using analogies or stories with my clients. I try to avoid the details because that's where all the objections come from. And I think if you learn to use different analogies and different stories, it helps really the client understand. Storytelling makes the business so much easier. Sell concepts, not products. You know, personally, I have not used Morningstar or any type of hypo with clients since 2009. I use it for myself in the back, but I almost never bring them up in front of clients. And my number 1 reason is I thought I was selling concepts and not products from 2002 to 2009. And then the bubble hit, and I felt like everybody's questions that I was getting from my clients, I didn't lose many, but I felt like all their questions were related to the hypos or, hey, I'm not getting that return, or it was too direct to, and I just started to realize maybe I did, the way I presented it, it was too detail oriented and too product oriented. And I had been told not to do that, but I thought I wasn't. stopped using Morningstar, my business exploded because I just rely on stories and things like that. So things I say often to my clients, it's not my job to find you the best investment. It's my job to find you a manager that suits your needs. I don't think there's any manager out there that suits all your clients' needs. You know, it depends on the situation, depends if it's short-term money, mid-term money, retirement money, their age, their risk tolerance. There's a lot of things that go into it. And so I'm always asking questions to try to relate. I know what we offer. I've done the studying on that. So I'm trying to figure out what their needs are so then I can help the client choose an investment that will meet those needs. You know, if I was your realtor and you asked for a two-bedroom, you want to look at two-bedroom homes, but me being your realtor, I know that four-bedroom homes are worth more. And so I go ahead and put a list of homes together and come back to you and say, okay, here's the homes we should look at. Right? That is not what you asked me to do. And so it works the same way in the investments. It's not about trying to find an investment that meets everybody's needs. It's about finding the right investment for each need. You know, my goal is to align client needs with managers or products. So you got to know what we offer: mutual funds, managed accounts, SMAs, variable annuities. You got to know all that stuff, but then it's finding those different managers or products that meet those clients' needs. Chris Roy said this, and I've remembered it ever since. I use it with clients all the time. You don't need another product, you just need a strategy. Product is what they're going to buy to meet that strategy. You got to figure out the strategy first. I always start with an educational approach. I think most people on this call do, so they have a better understanding of their options. One thing I learned early on is closing is it's a process, not a gotcha. So if you add value, it's the most important thing we bring to the table. Ben talks about this all the time. I think all the speakers on MPI have talked about the value. Got to bring value. So tell your story, tell Primerica's story, tell a story of how successful clients behave. Make sure you are investing in your own accounts. You know, I'm down, you know, some of my portfolio is down 30% this year because I'm 46 years old. I have a residual income business. I'm probably never going to use my money. It's for somebody else to use in the future. I'm going to be aggressive. So I'm like my other clients that buy and hold through these processes. I'm down 30%. I have no problem sharing that. I'm not a genius any more than anybody else, but we hired people that do a pretty good job with our money, and long term, I'm just pouring in more right now, just like I'm suggesting it to my clients. And when you're doing it yourself, it's a lot easier to sell to a client. Learn the basics of inside and out. So 3Ds, the Rule 72, you got to be able to tell that story very easily on a yellow pad. If you're brand new, use 6-page, you can use a presentation, but at some point you just got to be able to do it without any prompts and just go ahead and do it. And you should be practicing that all the time. One suggestion after all appointments, when I was training my sister, she's now a regional vice president, I used to suggest to her that write all the objections you get down on paper, because you've got to figure out why they're coming up, what analogies you can use or stories you can tell to overcome them, and then bring those up first in the future. And then you'll get a lot less objections. Every time I train somebody, I feel like they get a lot more objections than I do. Part of it is you bring it up naturally. You don't even know you're doing it, but you're ahead of the game and you're overcoming those objections before they even come up. You know, find a story or an analogy that overcomes that objection and use it when everyone else before the next time it comes up. Another thing is an F&A on everyone, especially in the beginning. I think that so many people in Primerica are missing the boat on that. I get people that come up to me and say, you know, how do you ask for a statement? Well, during the F&A process, there's not a process, you just ask. But if you're just there to write life and then you're asking for a statement, that's much more difficult. So if you're doing the FIN number or some type of analysis, then it's not that difficult to ask for statements. You know, if you were a doctor, you'd hate to walk into the office and for your first symptom, he's already prescribing something, right? You want the doctor asking all these questions. That's what we do during the F&A process. How long have you had those symptoms? What might have caused those symptoms? What's different? What changed since the last time we saw you? What's your temperature, right? So as a professional, why would you ever prescribe someone a mutual fund without knowing all the facts? That's part of the F&A process. You don't have to do a full-fledged F&A, but you've got to get some information and some understanding of the client so you know their needs. Diversification, the way I explain diversification is pretty simple. It's not having all one stock or just a few stocks. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You've heard that before. My favorite one is the frozen pond analogy. What do they tell people, or the Boy Scouts, if they're ever on a frozen lake and they start hearing cracking, what do they tell them? They tell them to lay down. You're spreading your weight. Now, if you spread your weight when the ice is cracking, it is not guaranteed that you will not fall through, but it increases your odds because you don't have all the pressure on one point of the ice. It's the same thing with a portfolio. It works the same way. Diversifying does not guarantee you that you won't lose money, but it does increase your odds of a successful outcome. Asset allocation is diversifying your mutual funds. So asset allocation and diversification are not the same thing. They're pretty darn similar, but diversification is not just being in one spot. Asset allocation is spreading the money to different asset classes, which is just it's a diversification of mutual funds. Like building a house. I talk about this all the time. I do a lot of housing analogies. But if you were building someone's house and you felt the place that you were buying had great windows and okay doors, you would never replace the doors with windows just because you like the windows better, right? So if you're going to allocate funds, and right now large cap growth is probably the most overvalued on the spectrum according to Morningstar and things like that, you're still going to probably leave some in there. You're not going to eliminate it and put everything into small cap, and then when it recovers, move everything again. When you diversify, you're spreading it out and allowing the different sectors to go up and down on their own, because we don't know when those things are going to change. We can predict that they're undervalued or overvalued, but we can't predict when that's going to change. So it's the same thing with building a house. You're still going to buy the windows, you're still going to buy doors, you're going to buy shingles. You're not just going to go one way just because you like something better than something else. So my job as an advisor is to build you that and make sure that you don't have 10 mutual funds that all buy the same things, right? Because if you look at, when I joined the business 20 years ago, a lot of 401ks, you'd see their allocation, and the client would have 5 mutual funds. They're all large cap value or all large cap growth, because when they picked the funds, it was the 5 best performing funds over the last 10 years, which all ended up in the same asset class. And so that's not our job as an advisor, to make sure that we're covering the spectrum. Dollar cost averaging, it's consistently and systematically investing on a weekly, monthly, or annual process. It avoids guessing when to buy. It's about accumulation of shares. The analogy I use most often is it's like growing a plant. You can't just put all the water in the beginning or all the water at the end of the month. You just constantly, or at the end of the year, you just constantly will have to water the plant over and over and over again. So you need to basically water your portfolio over and over and over again throughout your lifetime. And then discipline, I talk about 2 types of discipline. I think they both need to be there. The first one is the discipline not to sell. I think most of us do a pretty good at that job of that. And if you've been trained in Primerica, most likely your clients don't leave because of this. But then the other discipline that really makes more money, that I talked about clients all the time, is you still got to follow the strategy. Don't stop dollar cost averaging because the market's down. So that sometimes clients may not sell, but they stop buying. And that's such a huge mistake. It's the best opportunity to buy in these times. And so they got to keep having both disciplines. And I always tell clients, for some reason, the stock market might be the only place in the world that people run from when it's on sale. Everything else that comes on sale. I was with a client last night and she was all nervous. It was going to be her first investment. She just inherited some dollars, and what she's inheriting is down 30%. I said, well, the only way you get that 30% back is if we continue to invest. And the only reason you have this inheritance is because they invested throughout their lifetime. They did not go to a bank. And so you got to look at the whole picture. And she's like, yeah, but now, and I said, well, if shoes are on sale tomorrow, would you buy 2 pairs even though you only need 1? Of course they would. When it comes to stocks, instead of being able to buy twice as many stocks, they tend to shy away from it. So I had those conversations all the time. And it's like a roller coaster. The only person that gets hurt is the person who jumps off before the ride is done. Do not jump off the roller coaster. The difference is, generally speaking, the roller coaster in the stock market always ends higher than the way you started. And so it's about gaining steps. I always say, you know, it's like bouncing a basketball up the stairs. You gain 3 or 4 steps, you lose 1 or 2. You gain 3 or 4 steps, you lose 1 or 2. In the long run, we all know that the trajectory is north. Here's, I use this one all the time. My mom always told me 90% of what I worry about doesn't happen, so stop worrying. It's the same thing with the market. The news is always negative, and when the news is negative and your portfolio is negative, the news seems to be right. When the news is negative and your portfolio is still climbing, we tend to ignore the news. No matter what, it's negative, right? I heard a long time ago, the news has to sell itself every 20 minutes, all day long, 24 hours a day. If you just think back, and I'll just bring this up because it's recent, but when the Ukraine war first started, every channel had the same images every 20 minutes and repeated the story 24 hours a day for about 2 to 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden their ratings were starting to go down. So the war that was continuing just as awful 3 or 4 weeks into it, it became a 5-minute piece of that 20-minute section. And today you kind of hear a very quick, if any, every hour on Ukraine. But the war is still going on, and it's just as bad today as it was 4 months ago. Unfortunately, when the ratings go down, they find something else to get the ratings going. And so always remember when they're talking about some of the stuff that's going on in the news, it's not 100% real. It's how they have to sell it to you. And when they're doing it to your clients, when the portfolio is negative and the news is negative, all of a sudden it matches. And I talk about that up front, not just afterwards, just to remind them that the news has to sell. They need ratings, right? They need to make sure that people are watching it so that they can get the advertising rights. And so it's just a constant negativity. Everybody's always predicting gloom. I always tell stories about March of 2020. Think of, this is one of the stories I've been using a lot lately. If you think of March of 2020, we were in the Bahamas in February with Primerica and kind of a couple of jokes about this potential COVID thing. Like, it was not real at all. The market had peaked out while we were in the Bahamas. And then all of a sudden, there was a couple of cases in the US, the news started to turn. And if you think about the March, the market tanked in 4 weeks. I think the official number is 43% from what I've read, but north of 40% in 4 weeks. There wasn't a lot of cases. We had shutdowns. I was 44 years old. Most of the people I would talk to every day were like, I don't know anybody that's had COVID, right? And so the fear of the pandemic caused the market to go down 40%. Over the next 6 months, the market continued to climb, yet the cases got worse. The stuff that went on in the nursing homes in New York and all that news was getting worse. I mean, it was devastating what happened to people over the next 4 months. But oddly, during that process, the market recovered. So the fear of the pandemic for the stock market was a lot worse than the pandemic itself. And I think that if you go back to 2009, Ben was just talking where normally the market discounts the future. So the market is looking at potentially a recession, so it goes down now. Once the recession's final, the market will start to probably recover right away. That's generally how things work. And so I just try to, when I tell the stories of March, I just relate to people to let them know that the fear of something is a lot worse than the actual thing when it comes to the stock market, because people react to emotions way more than they react to the reality of things. So investing in the stock market, like being on a heart monitor, it goes up and down every day. I always tell them if it flatlines, then call me. That's when you get nervous, when it's been the same for too long. So here's a big thing that I get a lot of questions on is overcoming fees. And first I'll cover my concept, but if you provide enough value, I think Ben has mentioned this many times on MPI and so have others, then fees are very rarely an issue. They're normally an issue in our own heads, especially when you're early on, but it's because we lack confidence. When you lack confidence, you say things or do things that create objections, and then clients are just trying to find a way to say no by just continue to ask objections until you stop overcoming them. but some prospects will never move forward anyway. And Art Williams always said, you know, great for them. That's perfect for them. They don't have to move forward. In fact, your business, there's so many people out there that need our services. You just got to learn to move from them as quick as possible. And you don't really want them in your business. If you have to coerce them into investing, they're probably not going to be a good investor. And if you sell Primerica life insurance, then you understand value. It is not the cheapest insurance out there, right? So if you can sell Primerica life insurance, then you know how to value. You just got to translate how you did that over to the security side of the business as an investment advisor. So let's look at a savings account. This is one of my favorite analogies, right? So if a bank had to tell you, so when you invest in a bank or put it into a savings account, I'll call it investing, they only have to tell you what they're willing to pay you. Imagine if they had to tell you what their profits were for placing your money there. And that's just not how it works. In the investment side, we have regulators, and they want to make sure we disclose every fee in every single way and all the costs, and basically put that up front and worry about the return later. But net of fees, the investments are always really good. Unfortunately, that's what they want. When it comes to savings accounts, they only have to disclose what they're willing to give you. Why aren't they forced to tell you their profits? I think a lot less people will go to a bank if they saw that the Rule 72 up front says, hey, for every 100,000 you put here, we're going to have, you know, $6 million, and we're going to give you back 300,000 down the road. Well, if that's the case, you probably wouldn't deposit your money there. But unfortunately, that's not how it all works. Another way to do it is always ask somebody, what do you pay for your cell phone? Everybody knows how much they pay per month, but no one ever knows what the fees are. The same thing with investment. If the net return is better than what you have, and it's the only way to become wealthy, then why do the fees matter so much? Everybody wants to do everything for free, but Wall Street needs to be paid. That's just how this system works. People buy different types of cars, right? If someone owns a Mercedes, there's a reason why they own a Mercedes, because they understand value compared to something else that they don't want to own. It's the same way with our investment business. You gotta have the confidence to understand that we're worth what we are, because we bring a lot of value to our clients. And most clients want that. Most clients want to work with somebody. Unfortunately, when you come across 2 or 3 in a row that may not want to work with somebody and just question you to death, you start to lose faith. And you've got to get past that, because eventually you realize that way more people want help than not want help. I hear things like, you know, people say, well, people tell me, you know, investing is like gambling. I would completely disagree. They're not the same at all. Gambling is hoping to make a lot, even though you know the odds are against you. Investing is putting time, money, or resources towards something that has a high probability to earn you a reward. There's a huge difference, right? So if you gamble, if you put money on the Red Sox or money on the Blue Jays or whoever your team is, you have a 50% chance of winning and 50% chance of losing, even though because you're smarter and you did your research, you think your odds are better. The reality is the odds are not necessarily better. But investing is different, right? People go to a 4-year college. That's not gambling. I mean, with some of the prices today, that's probably gambling unless mom and dad are paying. But there's no guarantees in mutual funds, but the history suggests that your odds are pretty good that you'll have a successful outcome. Not all investments are for everyone. So this is one of the charts. Horizon did this, one of their first brochures that I had seen a few years back, and I use this for clients all the time. I just draw a mountain, and I let them know their first 35 to 40 years of their investment experience is typically growth oriented. Then they get to, you know, you're close to retirement, probably within 5 years or so. You get to that protection side, and then you're on the back side where you're just worried about income. And I'll ask clients all the time in this scenario and say, do you think that there's a manager out there that can be the best at growth, protection, and income at all times? And of course they laugh, of course not. So my job, depending on where you are in the cycle, is to go find the right types of investments that do these things for you. Because I don't hire a protection manager for growth. I don't hire a growth manager for income. My job is to do my research and make sure I provide you with the right type of manager based on this. And so some managers are very good at growth, some are very good at protection, some are very good at income. Some could be good at two, but no one's good at all three at the same time at all times. My takeaways for AUMs would be, first of all, it's a lot more fun. I really enjoy the conversations I have with clients. This is my third, so I mean, if this is a recession, it'll be my fourth recession since I've been in the business in 21 years. And each time it's been easier because we have these conversations and I tell stories and I just remind them. I tell them when the market's up, it's like a roller coaster, don't jump off. When the market's down, hey, remember I told you it's like a roller coaster, don't jump off. When the market's flat, remember I told you it's like a roller coaster, don't jump off. And so I just have those same similar conversations over and over again every time I talk to my clients and or referrals. They build much better relationships. You know, I can't imagine if I just did life that I can go back and say, hey, Ben, I know we met like a year ago and you bought a policy from me. I was wondering if I'd come back and sell you another one. And then call them back 2 years later and be like, hey, Ben, I'm sure your life has changed. I think you possibly need another life insurance policy. Let's get together and discuss that, right? But do I do a lot of additional insurance policies? I do when I go meet clients and their needs have changed, but I'm not there just to do the life insurance. I'm there to do their analysis, and when their needs change, it's a lot easier to have those discussions and you build much better relationships. You build much better referrals. Everybody wants to refer their investment guy. Most people don't want to refer their insurance guy or gal. There are some key numbers, I think, if you're new to the business or you've been here a little while, you'll start to see this. But I think once you get to 15 million in AUMs, I feel like that's when I felt like I was actually in business. I wasn't prospecting every day for everything. There's always something to do, people to go see. You still do some prospecting, depending on how fast you want to grow the business. But you're at least in a situation where things come up and you feel like you're in business. At 25 million, I think referrals become regular, even though you don't even ask for them. I have not prospected essentially since 2012 when I hit about this amount. Everything has just come where I just take care of my clients. I get referred regularly. Honestly, I do a poor job. Shouldn't admit this, but I don't really ask for referrals and I get them continuously. I think it's mostly because I've been around long enough. It's AUMs. And I just think that when you've done that, build relationships, people refer you, and they're much easier referrals because people call me, we get together to solve problems. And then when you get to 50 million, it's just constant. And from there, it depends on how hard you want to work. You want to keep working, keep moving forward and growing your AUMs, or you start to spend less time on the phone, following up with them, but it still grows. It just continues. But if you get to this point and you push forward, then you start to explode. And you can go from 50 million to 100 million a lot faster than you got your first 50 million. You'll go from 100 million to 200 million a lot faster than you did your first 50 million because it just starts to compound. I think you never have to prospect again when you get to those levels. You can, you just don't have to. So I'll just finish with this. This is for those of you guys that do lifetime assets. I mean, I was a school teacher making $27,000 a year in my 5th year as a teacher in New Hampshire. I'm blown away when you look at the numbers. So I did this last November. I was at 47 million in AUMs on just the lifetime platform, so just the managed accounts. And if I got 6% growth in the markets and did $1 million or $10 million a year, the residual income, so my residual income last year was 291. My residual income by the end of this year, if I get to my 60 million, would be 370,000. And then if you just grow by 10% and add 10 million a year, you'll see that this is what amazes me. 6 years away, at least my business, and I feel, we average over $10 million a year so far for the last 4 years. That's $1 million in residual income a year. Just a small little guy in New Hampshire with a small little business that just keeps working. I mean, I think that is unfathomable to me. I would have never thought that there was a game plan this quick to $1 million. I felt when I was young, I used to do the numbers, and I think, if you work at Primerica for 40 years and do securities in today's world, you get to $1 million anyway. It no longer takes anywhere near that time frame And this is not $1 million in 1 year. This is $1 million just in your residual income on just one piece of what we do. Doesn't include annuities or mutual funds, insurance, recruits, RVPs. You know, I have one RVP. I've been here 21 years. But I mean, this is just strictly my personal AUM helping $1 million a month or less, just under $1 million a month. This is just mind blowing to me that it could be this simple to get to $1 million. And so I don't know if you guys want to open up the questions, or if Ben, you want to take over.
Man, so many things to unpack here. First of all, I would definitely buy from you. I would be a client. You're very, very calm. And I can't stress how important the stories are, guys. Stop presenting and just ask more questions, be a better listener, and relate with stories. Because most people, they don't care about the technical stuff. You know, they want simple, they want to buy, they don't want to be sold, just so many good things. And the last part, it's just a shame for me how many people quit before it gets really, 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 really good. If I could just, get it in all of your minds, how easy this business gets for Nick or me or whoever, literally doing nothing. It's all quality referrals by just building a client base that you bring continued value to. It's a game changer. Brad, who's handling questions today for Nick?
Scott is on.
Scott,
Yep, I got
any
you.
questions, bud?
Yeah, man. Hey, Nick, you talked about your personal business philosophy. Can you just talk about like how to create your own personal business philosophy and maybe what yours is?
So I think that part of that is the understanding that, so I've walked away from clients, and once I did that the first time, it was so much easier to do it in the future. And then I started getting much better clients. I think I started the business like most people. You're asking people for appointments, and you get more appointments. You're just asking them for a favor. Hey, Scott, I was wondering if you'd do me a favor. I just want to come show you what I'm doing. It's probably not for you. But then you're there and you're trying to convince them because you were there just to show them. And that's part of learning the business. But eventually you lead to that where you're all in the referral business. And then you stop begging. You probably should have never begged, but it's natural. You're just learning something. And I feel like once you get past that stage, when Ben was just saying it just gets easier, then your business philosophy starts to really adjust, and you realize that some of my worst clients are the ones that are still with me from the first few days, because they've never left, but they've also never fully bought into what I offer. And so when I'm sharing my ideas on, trying to find the right manager, and they're kind of questioning everything, I have no problem saying, hey, Scott, it sounds like either you don't know what you really want or you want everything for free. Either way, I'm probably not the right person. And you gain that confidence. You don't have to say it very often after that, because people, you read those people a lot quicker. But that's part of the business philosophy. F&As. So many people, when I learned the business, I did F&As with everybody. I went back and I redo F&As. I don't do nearly as many now, because when I get referred, sometimes I'm putting out a fire on one little thing. And so I'm trying to get all their information and do a complete F&A, but you don't necessarily need to fill out a form. But in the beginning, I just made sure I tried to do that because I wasn't professional yet. I had to. And so I think that people skip on like, oh, I got a rollover. Well, what else did you ask them? Did you ask them about their family? Did you find out if, they're married with kids? Do they need life insurance? But people just need to learn that, what's your philosophy going to be? Are you going to do the full job for the vast majority of your clients, or just take what comes?
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned building your first 15 million, 25 million. Maybe can you just tell everybody a little bit about, as you did that, where were you getting clients from? A couple questions came in about where did you get in his first 15 million?
So I did a lot of seminars for teachers. I was a school teacher, and I was taught to just talk to the people Unfortunately, my first 5 years since, in New Hampshire, I did a lot of teachers. Teachers don't make any money. And so I was doing a ton of $50, $100, $150 a month PACs. But when it was about 2011 or 12, when I started reading my reports and I became a regional vice president, I didn't know we had those reports prior, but we were at $100,000 in PACs per month. And today our business is almost 200,000 with my sister in
Wow.
PACs. And it's just 1,300 clients at $50, $100, $500. Yeah, I have a few that do 5 or 10 grand a month, but it's not the big part of my business. It's just doing a ton of them. And over 20 years, their needs change. They change jobs. I mean, I was, you know, Ben mentioned Dan Brochu was my regional vice president. When he was building the business in the 90s, everything was small, right? So I have a client that in 10 years, I did $300,000 rollovers for. Changed jobs 3 times in 10 years, but he worked in a good company where he maxed out and they gave him a good match. And in a 10-year period, the guy rolled over $1 million. Dan didn't have his first $1 million client. He was in the business for 25 years because the numbers were just different back then. You know, last year we created $4 million clients in 1 year. That is now becoming a normal thing where it used to, no one had that money. So if you just keep working and doing the business and doing the right things for clients, eventually those clients' needs change.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
real quick, question that I have, Nick, I know you don't get too technical with clients, which I understand and I appreciate, but what are some of your, I know you're, you know, doing more advisory business. Like what are your favorite strategies in the Lifetime platform and why, and describe your philosophy there.
So I'm doing an SMA event in a month, but I mostly believe at this point in the SMAs. It's basically personal mutual funds on the platform through AGF, RNC, Dana, and Franklin Templeton. That's the, you know, right now, I think because of the market down, we're down like 44 million in AUMs on the Lifetime, and 42 million of it is SMAs. So that's first and foremost. I love the concept of an individual mutual fund versus other people being in the pool with you. And I've really done some studying and research on that. And I feel that is, in my opinion, generally speaking, the best product we offer at Primerica in the investment side. When it comes to specific strategies, I do a lot of RNC because I have clients that are approaching retirement. And if you understand their dividend and you own 32 to 33 high quality stocks that pay on average a 3.5% dividend with an 8% increase over time. I show clients all the time, you know, if you're 55 years old, I have this story, you know, you want to retire at 60. If you're 60, you want to retire at 65. Hey, Ben, if you know, let's just say you had $1 million as an example, and you could live off of Social Security plus the dividends. So dividends on $1 million can be $35,000 a year. So that's a little over, you know, $3,000 a month with the increases over time. Say, okay, Ben, here's what's going to happen. You want to work 5 more years. If I put you into this portfolio now, you could conceivably, if you got laid off tomorrow from what we just discussed, you could retire. So here's how this is going to work. If we choose this versus a growth manager, and you get laid off next week, and the market's down 20%, I'm going to say, hey, Ben, let's just get together. We'll turn the income on. No big deal. You're still going to get your $35,000 a year. If the market's up, you're going to be all excited that, hey, Ben, let's just get together. You're going to get $35,000 a year with increases. No big deal. If the market's flat, hey, Ben, and if you retire in 3 years or 5 years, I go, the longer you work, we can then move your 401k back into it and increase your income. But I'm done being stressed for anything you have to go through, because you're going to get your income regardless of, so the longer you wait, we're reinvesting the dividends, you're investing other places, your portfolio is getting larger, or we can choose growth and hope when you retire, the market's up.
That's good.
Which one would you prefer?
So
That's why I do a lot of that.
We got some new people. Explain the difference between an SMA and then maybe on the retail side. And then why should the people on the call get their 65 if they don't have it?
Okay, so in simplistic form, a mutual fund is a pooled asset. And if you understand flows of money, the stock market supply and demand, right? So long-term, Home Depot is going to make more money in 10 years than it does today. So long-term, Home Depot is going to increase their dividend and the price of their stock is going to go up. Short-term, the news is going to drive the ups and downs. But the managers that buy Home Depot don't buy Home Depot to get rich. They buy Home Depot to stay rich. That's why you hire a manager that buys Procter and Gamble, IBM, those types of companies. Unfortunately, what happens in a mutual fund, if you compare the two, is that when we have significant downturns in the market, that only occurs if there is way more selling going on than buying. So that drives prices down. If you're in a mutual fund, especially if you have a large position, you're in a pooled asset. And that money manager at the bottom of the market is forced to sell stocks for the liquidations that they're being asked. And I always tell, hey, Ben, you call me up, you need 30 grand. I call the manager, I'm like, there's no more cash in the mutual fund. Thank you. Call me back in 2 or 3 months to see if we can get some money for you. And clients laugh and I go, yeah, we can't do that. We have to put the trade in. If you're putting the trade in, then other people that are doing that are forcing that manager to not be able to hold all the stocks because the outflows are bigger than the inflows. And in SMA, everybody gets an individual account. They're all managed identically, but you get your own account and you own your own stocks. In that situation, if you don't call me to sell, you're going to own all your stocks through the market downturn and through the recovery. So you're not going to get affected by others. Your value will get affected because if everybody's selling Home Depot because of the pandemic, then if you have 100 shares of Home Depot, they're going to go down in value, but you still have 100 shares when you recover. Where in a mutual fund, you don't have 100%. And so the more aggressive a mutual fund is, if it has an SMA, the bigger the difference the SMA will return. The less aggressive funds is not as, people don't buy typically Home Depot-like companies and trade them on a day-to-day basis, right? Because there's not as much movement. So the less aggressive mutual funds, their SMAs are more alike, their total returns. But generally speaking, from everything I've seen, the SMA outperforms the mutual fund in the vast majority of the time.
It's well explained. Very good job.
Cool. Hey,
Any
Nick,
other
I'm gonna give you a break for a second. Hey, Soraya, is it Soraya? I don't know if I'm Soraya. Is that how you say it?
Soraya.
Thanks, sorry. I have trouble with Mark actually, so that's definitely gonna be a problem. So you mentioned something about Grant Ecosystem. Some people were asking what that is.
Yeah, that's just Grant Cardone, 10X Community. I've done mentorships with him, met multiple different training, different programs, I guess, like sales, marketing, scaling, pretty much anything under the sun. Yeah. Okay,
cool. Thank you. Hey, Nick, I'll go back to you. Go ahead.
I got a question. I got a question for Nick. So there's been some questions popping up. Nick, by the way, phenomenal job today. Unbelievable education. People got better today. But a lot of people asking, how do you get $10 million a year in AUM? Right? People are looking for that magic pill, and I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
So I didn't get that in the beginning, and I think if you prospect more, if you're in the right market, that could happen. But if you get to 15 or 20 or 25 million and start taking care of people, it starts to get easier. So 5 years ago, $500,000 was my worst month every month or during the year. This year, and last year we did 17 million. It's just taking care of clients. So it's not like you could just turn it on tomorrow. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think you could just turn it on tomorrow if you got in the right crowd. But most people, it's going to be over time. And then when you hit that threshold and you keep working, you look at a lot of Primerica businesses and people tend to slow down at certain levels. People stay at 2 or 3 or 400,000 for a while because they stop pushing as hard as they did prior. If you just keep putting at least a certain amount of effort in, Ben, after really working hard for those 3 to 5 years ago, today he can turn it on and off a lot faster than I can.
Right.
He's got a much bigger business. But the reality is I think that it becomes, we do it every year just because we take care of our clients and people change jobs.
Yeah. And I just, again, to reiterate, guys, I started the business in 2003. It was very part-time, but all the leaders on this call can vouch that we just didn't run into the volume, right? Dan, he mentioned Brochu was struggling to do 200 a month. If you get good, just get in front of people 60 and older. You do that consistently, you'll come back to me and you'll never do less than $1 million a month. That all the Primerica literature is 25 to 55. It's broken. I'm not saying I'm not going to help a young family, but if you're only in front of people that are 60 and older, then instead of making 500 an hour, you're making 5,000 to 10,000 for the same hour. That's the difference. This wall of wealth is real. I don't care if you've been here for a year or 2 years. If you're fully licensed and you just get good at 60 and older, the volume's just going to be crazy. Now, what will happen is you won't have to do any marketing or lead generation once you have Nick's client base. But my whole point is you do the same work that we all had to do when we first started. You're going to make way more money and do way more volume for the same hours of time because of this wall of wealth. And that's what you have to understand right now.
Ben, let me make a comment on that. In 2003, at Coker's Gala, I did $1 million for the year, and I was in the top 25 at Coker's Gala for the year. Today, you're not in the top 25 if you do $1 million a month. I mean,
Right.
that's
I mean,
the difference.
I think Gordy, I think Gordy Bohannon's at almost what, $30 million in volume for June so far. Remember the MVP for the securities trip? If you did 4 million over 6 months, and when it first started, you were in the top 25. Now you have to do what? I don't know, 10, 15 million. I mean, it's just the game's changing. So I just wouldn't miss out on what's happening right now. If you're engaged and you're working, you're going to make a lot of money and help a lot of people.
We're good, bud.
the opportunity.
An incredible
Any other questions?
MPI. Incredible.
Hey guys, appreciate it, Nick. You were awesome. Please email your PowerPoint to somebody because they're going to be asking us. And guys, don't miss Chris Royce next week. He's one of the best. Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.